Imagine this for a moment. You're sitting with a group of friends. Everyone's laughing, talking, scrolling through their phones. Someone says, "Did you see my post from yesterday?" Another person pulls up Instagram to show a vacation photo. Someone else checks how many likes their latest story got. And then there's one person in the group, quiet about their online life. No constant posts, no daily stories, no updates about what they ate, where they went, or who they met. Maybe that person is you. Or maybe you know someone like this, someone who lives a full life but barely shares any of it online. And in today's world, that almost feels unusual because social media has quietly created a new social rule. If it's not posted, did it even happen? But here's the interesting psychological twist. People who don't share their lives on social media are often experiencing something very different inside their minds than most people assume. At first glance, people might think they're private, maybe shy, maybe antisocial, maybe they just don't get social media. But psychology suggests something deeper might be happening. Let me show you something fascinating. Human beings have always wanted to share their lives. Long before Instagram, people shared stories around campfires. Families passed down memories through conversation. Friends talked about their day face to face. But social media introduced a new layer to this instinct: public validation. Every post becomes a tiny performance. A photo, a caption, a moment carefully selected and shared with an audience. And when people react to it, with likes, comments, or shares, your brain releases a small burst of dopamine. That's the same neurotransmitter linked to reward and motivation. In other words, every notification is like a tiny psychological pat on the back. Now, this isn't necessarily bad, it's just how human brains work. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. Some people slowly become aware of this system. They notice how easy it is for their mood to become tied to reactions from others. They notice how a simple post can turn into a subtle search for approval. And once someone becomes aware of that dynamic, their relationship with social media can change dramatically. Instead of thinking, "I should post this," their brain starts asking a different question. Why do I feel the need to post this? That shift might sound small, but psychologically it's huge, because the moment someone begins questioning the impulse to share everything, they start reclaiming a sense of internal validation. Think about it this way. Imagine you go to a beautiful place. Maybe it's a quiet beach at sunset. The sky is glowing orange, the waves are soft, and for a moment the world feels peaceful. Now there are two possible reactions. One person immediately reaches for their phone. They frame the shot, adjust the lighting, take a few photos, maybe record a short video. They're already imagining the caption. Another person just stands there. They watch the sunset. They feel the moment. They don't need an audience to confirm that it's beautiful. And here's the key psychological difference. The experience stays private. Psychologists sometimes describe this as intrinsic versus extrinsic validation. Extrinsic validation comes from outside sources: likes, praise, attention, approval. Intrinsic validation comes from within. It's the quiet feeling of satisfaction that doesn't require anyone else to notice. People who rarely share their lives online often lean more heavily toward that second system. Their brain simply doesn't rely as much on external acknowledgement to feel that something mattered. And interestingly, research in psychology has shown that people with strong intrinsic motivation often report higher levels of long-term satisfaction because their experiences aren't constantly filtered through the question, "How will this look to others?" There's another layer to this as well. When you share something online, you're not just sharing the moment, you're shaping it. You choose the best angle, the best lighting, the best caption, the best version of the story. Over time, social media can subtly encourage people to curate their lives like a highlight reel. But people who rarely post are often less interested in curating their identity for an audience. Their sense of identity tends to be more internal. They don't necessarily feel the need to constantly narrate their life story to the world. And that doesn't mean they're hiding. In fact, it often means the opposite. Many people who don't share their lives publicly still share deeply with the people who matter most to them. They'll talk for hours with close friends. They'll send photos privately to family. They'll tell stories in person instead of broadcasting them online. Their sharing isn't public, it's personal. And that distinction is psychologically meaningful because the human brain evolved for small social circles, for tribes, for close relationships, not for broadcasting every moment to hundreds or thousands of people. There's also something else happening inside the minds of people who stay quieter online. Attention. When you constantly document your life, part of your attention is always slightly removed from the moment. A piece of your mind is thinking about how the moment will look when shared. But when someone doesn't feel the need to document everything, their attention stays anchored in the present experience. They're not dividing their awareness between the moment and the potential post. They're just there. Ironically, that can make experiences feel richer. The laughter lasts longer, the conversations feel deeper, the memories feel more personal because they weren't designed for an audience, they were lived. Of course, none of this means that sharing on social media is wrong. For many people, it's a way to stay connected, express creativity, or document memories. But the psychology of people who choose not to share everything reminds us of something important. Not every meaningful moment needs witnesses. Some experiences are powerful precisely because they remain private. A quiet conversation, a personal achievement, a beautiful sunset that exists only in your memory. In a world where almost everything can be posted, sometimes the most meaningful choice is not to post at all. And maybe that's why people who rarely share their lives online seem calm about it. They're not trying to disappear. They're simply living their lives without turning every moment into content. So now I'm curious about something. Are you someone who enjoys sharing your life online, or someone who prefers keeping most of your experiences private? There's no right answer, but understanding the psychology behind it can reveal something interesting about how your mind works. And sometimes the quietest choices say the most about who we really are.